Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this special side event of the INC5 hosted by the Korea Environment Institute. The roundtable session organized by KEI is titled Plastic-Free Future, Policy Directions and Global Collaboration. We are honored to have distinguished speakers, experts, and stakeholders joining us to discuss innovative approaches, tackling plastic pollution and fostering international cooperation. To get started with our session, please join me in welcoming Dr. Lee Chang-hun, President of KEI, for reopening remarks.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to KEI's special side event at the 5th meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. As we gather here in Busan, where the world is focusing on finalizing the draft of Global Plastics Treaty, this session offers a critical opportunity to explore innovative policy directions and strengthen international collaboration in the fight against plastic pollution. I would like to begin by extending my heartfelt appreciation to our esteemed speakers for their participation today. In particular, I'm deeply grateful to Ms. Dachen Chevin, Director and Regional Representative of UNEP Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, for joining us, and for UNEP's continued leadership in addressing global environmental challenges. And I also wish to thank Mr. Shin Kyung-nam, Assistant Director General of Global Green Growth Institute, for his dedication to advancing sustainable, inclusive green growth initiatives worldwide. I would also like to extend special lot of thanks to our discussant and moderator for their invaluable contribution to today's roundtable session. Your expertise and insights will provide a foundation of thoughtful discussions and meaningful outcomes. At KEI, we are deeply committed to contributing to sustainable development of global community and driving innovative solutions through research and policy advocacy. Our green economy collaborative research and policy support on circular economy reflect this commitment, focusing on developing national strategies, indicators, and legislative frameworks to drive systematic transformation in our societies. These initiatives aim to create sustainable pathways to address the complex challenges posed by plastic pollution and other critical environmental issues nowadays. Today's roundtable discussion, organized by the Korea Environment Institute, highlight the importance of collaboration. By bringing together experts from various fields and from various countries, we have an invaluable opportunity to exchange ideas, challenge existing paradigms, and explore policy direction for plastic life cycle approach and global collaboration to end plastic pollution. I'm confident that today's discussions will make a significant contribution to global efforts in addressing these urgent issues nowadays. Once again, thank you for joining us and for your unwavering commitment to this wider cause. I look forward to the fruitful discussions ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, President Lee, for your inspiring words and for setting the stage for today's important discussion. Now it is my honor to invite our special guests to deliver their congratulatory remarks. First, we'll hear from Mr. Chen Sering, Director and Regional Representative of the UNEP Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sering to the stage.
Mr. Lee Chang-hun, President of the Korea Environment Institute, Mr. Shi Jung-nam, Assistant Director General of the Global Green Growth Institute, Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I'm very pleased to join you here today at the Roundtable on Uniting for a Plastic-Free Future, Policy Approaches and Global Collaboration. You're all here today, on the margins of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. This is the 5th INC, and we hope it will be the last INC, and we will agree on a legally binding instrument. At UNEA 5.2, the global community really came together and said we needed a legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. All of you know the issues, transboundary, local, regional, global, what it's doing to our oceans, and the issue of what it's doing to ecosystems, human health, and livelihood. We've been talking a lot about what this would mean, and I think all of you have a really important role, because at the global level, while we agree to a legally binding instrument, it's a multilateral environmental agreement, what it then comes to is communities, local level, at the city, at the regional, at the national, and really starting to think about what is the information that's available, what is the science, can we build enough capacity, are there technologies, and I think all of us are going to be really important into really helping us reduce our dependence on single-use, short-lived plastic pollutants. We're not going to be able to recycle our way out of this, but we have to start to think about sustainable consumption production. We have to start to think about behavioral. We have to start to think about upstream, but we also have to think about the legacy and also the reality that a lot of the global south doesn't have good waste management infrastructure. And I think it is an opportunity because I've just come from Baku, at the UNFCCC, the 29th Conference of Parties, where a lot of our work was looking at another global goal on finance. But I think we underestimate what we can do when we come together. And here I think all of you have a really important role, because the more information that's available to countries, the more capacity we build, the more small-scale technology, the more we communicated, the more we involve communities. And it's going to be really exciting. We keep talking about a circular economy, but it's really going to be exciting, the shift to circular economy, because while we drastically reduce plastic waste, we're talking about new jobs, and we're talking about cutting greenhouse gas emissions. The latest emission gap report says, we are not on track to stay within 1.5 degrees centigrade. And if you start to think about what's not staying within 1.5 degrees centigrade is, we will have too much water, glacial lake outburst floods. We'll have too little water. We'll have changes in weather patterns. We'll have changes in agriculture. And if you saw in Pakistan, really heavy monsoon floods and the impacts of it. So this is an opportunity to stay within a 1.5 degree world. I hope this roundtable, you learn from each other, assess impactful projects, discuss strategic policy solutions, but we all have to work together. If you start to think about crossing planetary boundaries, it's much bigger than each and every one of us. We have to be better coordinated. We have to stop duplicating. We have to build on each other's knowledge. We have to look at innovative projects, upscale them, look at impact, look at scale, look at speed. It's going to need all of us. And so I want to thank all of you really sort of adding your voice and adding your support for the whole INC process to continue to do that, and I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ring, for your insightful, encouraging remarks, and also for highlighting the crucial roles in driving our efforts to tackle various environmental challenges. Next, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Shin Kyung-nam, Assistant Director General of the Global Green Growth Institute, to share his remarks.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, and then colleagues and friends. Thank you so much for inviting GGI President Chairman Lee. So it's my great pleasure to join you today. It's so much important side event of INC 5. So KEI, we are actually signed on like a strong MOU KEI, and we are trying to develop several flagship projects with KEI. So it's so much happy to see also my colleague, GJI colleague here also. I would like also my heartfelt congratulations to KEI, such as this timely and impactful discussion on uniting for a plastic-free future, policy approach, and global collaboration. We stand a very important critical juncture now in the global fight against plastic pollution issues. The work being done here in Busan reflects the international community's shared determination to address the urgent crisis through the development of the global plastic treaty. Today's event is testament to KEI's and partners' strong leadership to foster meaningful dialogue and partnership to help drive the treaty's ambitious global forward. This is time to action. To underscore the urgency of our task, considering this according to UNEP, plastic pollution costs society anywhere from $300 to $600 billion annually, including impact on marine ecosystem, or cleanup effort, and the health-related expenses. Really huge. This staggering figure highlights the strong need for collaboration para solutions, and the international collaboration to curb those costs and protect both people and this planet. KEI focused on advancing life cycle approaches and exploring innovative power solutions reflect its active contribution to addressing environmental challenges. Its recent initiative and the collaboration with UNEP, GEO7, highlight the importance of research and the multi-stakeholder engagement in tackling plastic pollution and promoting a circular plastics economy. As DGI, currently we are working with 70 countries, including 14 member countries, going to be 50 very shortly, and 800 people. Plastic is one of the important our sector. We are currently expanding more resources and our expertise. For instance, like Philippines, now we have my colleague from Philippines. We have already launched a biodegradable plastic. It's more like a pilot project. And Indonesia, Java, $30 million biofuel project. And Vietnam just started developing biochar project. This project will be flagship project. We can see one success story, we can easily scale up and then also roll out in that country. We're also working with the KEI to develop nice projects, so hopefully we can have a good result. Through our global partnership, we support many partner member countries in developing actionable solutions that address plastic pollution at the source while considering entire life cycle, demand and supply chain as well. Our effort highlights the importance of inclusivity, ensuring SME, small medium enterprise, and vulnerable community are empowered to participate in this transition. As we embark on this important discussion today, I encourage each of you to reflect on how we can leverage our expertise, resources, and network to strengthen the implementation of global plastic treaty. Together, by uniting innovative policy approaches with global collaboration, I trust we can overcome the challenges of plastic pollution and seize the opportunity to create more sustainable future for all. Once again, congratulations to KEI for convening this excellent event. I'm looking forward to excellent discussion today and collaborative spirit that today's discussion will surely bring. Thank you so much.
Thank Thank you, Dr. Shin, for your inspiring remarks and for emphasizing the importance of research, collaboration, and partnership in addressing today's environmental challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed further, it is my great pleasure to officially launch the latest edition of KEI's Global Environmental Issue publication. This special issue titled Life Cycle Approaches and Policy Pathways for Tackling Plastic Pollution is closely aligned with the objectives of this session and the broader agenda of the INC5. As a cornerstone of KEI's commitment to fostering global dialogue and sharing expertise, the Global Environmental Issue publication highlights the critical environmental challenges, policy trends, and innovative solutions. I'd like to take this opportunity to express our heartfelt appreciation to the contributors who have enriched this publication with their expertise. We have here with us Dr. Patrick Shorter, who provided an in-depth analysis of the problematic plastic products. Professor Jang Yong-chul, who explored the roles and the responsibilities of the industry. And Dr. Lee So-ra from the Korea Environment Institute, who offered valuable insights into Korea's approaches to tackling plastic pollution. Their contributions have greatly enriched this edition, making it a resourceful guide for policymakers, researchers, and stakeholders. I'm also pleased to share that KEI has recently been designated as one of UNEP's 15 geo-collaboration centers. This recognition underscores KEI's growing role as a trusted partner in global environmental research and policy development. As part of this collaboration, KEI will contribute to the development and dissemination of GEO7's critical findings. Moreover, Korea will be hosting the final authors meeting of GEO7 in June 2025, organized by the UNEP, the Korean Ministry of Environment, and in collaboration with KEI. We look forward to your interest and support as you contribute to the development of this critical global initiative. Now, we'd like to get started with the roundtable session by inviting our esteemed lineup of discussants and moderator up to the stage, please. Thank you for your patience. Just to briefly introduce to you our moderator, Professor Jang Yong-chul from Chungnam National University. Professor Jang has been working closely with the Korea Environment Institute based on his extensive expertise in environmental policy and resource management, making him the ideal person to guide today's important conversation. We have just about 72 minutes for our discussion today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Professor Jang.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yong-chul Jang from Chungnam National University. I'm very pleased to have a round-the-table discussion session today as a moderator. Hopefully we have a good knowledge sharing and insights on finding a solution for global plastic pollution from policy experts, international organizations, and local experts for the next 72 minutes we only have. And so before we start discussion, I'd like to introduce 7 distinguished guests. The first, on the right-hand side, Patrick Schroeder from Chatham House. And right next to the Patrick, Dr. Solari from KEI. And on the third, Yoshiko Hota from IGES. And next to the Dr. Hota, there's Rio Kawamura from AREA, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. And on the left-hand side, we have OECD Schroeder Agrawala from OECD in France. And also we invited GGGI, Lena Roberts, and then last person, Kim Hyung-jun from Korea Chemical Industry Association. So we have 7 distinguished guests. And so, as I mentioned, we have about 7 minutes discussion. So I'd like to ask each of you for about 5 to 6 minutes talking or presenting on my questions. So please try to keep on time so that you can hear from everybody. So there is I think there is a time. There is a time keeper. So let's take a look at time. So let's start with Patrick Schroeder. So based on your extensive research in global plastic pollution policies, so what key elements do you believe are essential in the global plastic treaty to ensure it effectively address plastic pollution? So I'd like to hear from Patrick. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And first of all, also let me thank KEI for inviting me to join. I'm Sana and thank you very so much. Very happy to be here and also very happy to have contributed to the special issue. I think it's a very good initiative. Before I start, just about Chatham House, very briefly. It was set up in 1920 and since then has tried to facilitate international cooperation on a range of issues. And global environmental challenges is one of the important areas nowadays where we need to find international cooperation, especially in times of where there's political conflict around the world. And we also try to highlight the role of the multilateral system, including the UN system, really important. That's why we also think this treaty on plastics is really relevant. And without this, I think countries will struggle to address the challenge each on their own. So we need to have this comprehensive approach with also global rules and global targets that will move everyone forward. There we go. Okay. So this is also from the paper and the special issue. I won't go into details here, but I just came out of the negotiations this morning where there was discussions on the scope of the treaty. And at the moment it's not quite clear what's in scope. It's likely that the upstream polymer production feedstock might not be in scope, but what definitely will be in scope of the treaty are plastic products. So that's an area where we can focus on very specifically. Plastics products is now the criteria how to identify them, also the design criteria, how to change problematic products that we have. This will be discussed in Contact Group 1. I think they're meeting this afternoon and they will start the discussions. Some countries have already proposed some text, what could be included, and some of the usual suspects that we know about, earbuds or cigarette butts or single-use items are already listed, so they might be included in the treaty. But I think we need to go beyond that and become more detailed. And this is what, for example, this is about. I think it's important to move ahead and also have sectoral specific criteria, both for identifying the problematic plastic, but at the same time also providing the solutions, how to redesign these products. That's why I tried to put them also together. You can see the problem, at the same time you can also see the design solution. And so these are some of the sectors. I think what might be missing here, what could still be included, would be automotive sector, that's also using lots of plastics. Probably others too, but so that's kind of the, let's say, technical advice that also we need to give to the negotiators to make progress. It's not quite clear whether all of this could be inside the treaty at this point, but in the process following on from this meeting in Busan with the COP process, there will be more scientific inputs required to guide also national action plans, and that's what my next slide is about. So another part of the treaty will be national action plans with control measures. It's also not quite clear whether these will be mandatory or voluntary, but all countries, I think, will move towards developing some sort of national action plan. And this graphic that we put together, I think, could serve as guidance how to design such plans, and it's actually based on an OECD figure from one of your reports, and we added a few bits and pieces to it. So the Global Plastics Treaty at the top will provide the overall guidance, and based on this, then countries can design various policy approaches based on different stages of the value chain. So different countries will have different spots, let's say, or different priorities, but the good news really is that there are already proven policy approaches for all of these that can be implemented, including also experiences from Japan and Korea on EPR. All of that will be really useful reference for other countries to follow. One of the, so if we look at the bottom part, and that's the issue of data and traceability, and again, for the scientific technical community to provide this data, that has emerged also during the negotiations as one of the big issues, that there's a lot of data gaps on plastics. That needs to be addressed. So there's a role for institutes all around the world to work together on filling these data gaps. Would be important to also inform policy design, but also to ensure monitoring of progress. And I'll stop here. So happy to answer and discuss later.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you gave us for different sectors for plastic design and criteria and for circularity. I think in order to better reuse and recycling, we need to start product design. I think definitely we need to address that key area, and so that we can make some more sustainable plastic product design, and so I think that's your suggestion will be valuable for the international community. Also, national action plan or national implementation plan definitely need to address this product circularity, as well as you mentioned 5 key area, starting with restraint demand and design for circularity and other things. I think you have a valuable insights on that plastic design criteria. Thank you very much, and I'd like to ask Dr. Sorari, and could you share some of the Korea's most successful policies on resource circulation, so how they would serve as a model for international approach to plastic waste management for the global community. So I'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
네, 저는 소개 감사드립니다. 저는 영어보다는 한국말을 더 빨리 할 수 있기 때문에 6분 안에 한국어로 설명을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 제가 오늘 드리려고 하는 내용은 플라스틱 전투기 관리를 위해서 한국이 그동안 한 30년간 얼마나 노력을 해왔고, 그 중에 성공적인 사례 한 5가지를 설명을 드리고요. 다른 나라에서 이런 제도를 접근하기 위해서 필요한 시사점에 대해서 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 이 그림에서 보시면 우리나라는 1991년부터 쓰레기를 분리배출하는 제도를 시행했습니다. EPR은 2003년에 시행이 됐기 때문에 21년 정도, 20년 넘는 역사를 갖고 있지만 어느 나라든 간에 재활용의 분리배출이 정착되기 위해서는 최소 10년은 걸립니다. EPR이 시작하기 전에 모든 나라에서도 우리나라를 포함해서 재활용의 분리배출이 정착이 되어야 되고 이 분리배출을 정착하는 데 있어서 우리나라에서도 중요한 제도가 재활용이 가능한 폐기물을 별도로 분리 가능하게 해서 표시해서 하는 제도를 95년도에 재활용 가능 표시 제도를 시행함과 동시에 재활용 쓰레기 종량제, 재활용이 안 되는 쓰레기는 돈을 내고 버리도록 하는 그런 역사적인 이런 흐름을 가지고 제도를 시행해 왔습니다. EPR 제도는 2003년도에 우리나라에서 이제 시행이 됐다고 말씀드렸는데요. 모든 제도가 EPR에 들어갈 수가 없었기 때문에 재활용이 어려운 플라스틱에 대해서는 2007년도에 자발적 협약을 통해서 재활용이 가능하도록 노력을 해왔습니다. 그런데 EPR을 잘 시행하기 위해서 또 필요한 것이 이 포장재에 관련된 재질 표시와 함께 또 등급입니다. 그래서 이 포장재가 재활용이 잘 되는지 안 되는지를 잘 표시하고 하기 위해서 2014년에 약 10년 전에 포장재 등급제를 시행했고요. 그 이후에 많은 제도적인 변화를 거쳐왔습니다. 그리고 실제로 코로나 전후로, 코비드-19 전후로 해서 생활 플라스틱에 대한 탈플러스 대책과 함께 전주기 플라스틱 대책 등 시행해왔고 올해부터는 순환경제사회 촉진법이 시행이 되면서 순환경제와 맞물려서 돌아가는 이런 플라스틱의 관리 대책이 본격화되었다고 볼 수가 있습니다. 우리나라에 크게 플라스틱과 관련된 전주기 대책은 크게 3가지 정도가 있습니다. 그 안에서도 크게 2축으로 나눌 수가 있는데요. 하나는 플라스틱 폐기물을 감량하기 위한 목표를 설정하고 제도를 설계하는 것, 그리고 재활용을 목표로 설정하고 제도를 설계하는 것으로 되어 있고 대부분의 감량 목표는 우리가 2018년에 쓰레기 대란이 난 이후에 약 50% 감축 목표를 잡았지만 2020년 이후에 코비드-19 생기면서 발생하면서 배달 음식이나 플라스틱 사용량이 많이 급증을 해서 최근에 나온 목표에서는 이 플라스틱 발생량의 감축도 좀 약간 야심찬 목표에서 현실화로 내려가는 20% 정도 감축으로 내려가는 대신에 고품질 재활용을 유도하는 정책들로 변화가 되어 왔습니다. EPR 시스템의 역사가 93년도에 예치금 제도라는 것을 시작으로 2003년도에 이제 생산자 책임 재활용제도 EPR로 시행되고 왔고요. 20년 사이에 상당히 큰 성과가 있었습니다. 그래서 대상이 되는 제품은 약 3배, 참여하는 생산자들은 한 4배 이상 참여를 하게 됐고 재활용량이나 온실가스 감축에 대한 부분 약 2배 정도 좋은 성과를 거두고 있습니다. 특히 다음에 소개해드릴 여러 제도들과 함께 고품질 재활용량을 올리는데 커다란 성과가 있음을 설명드리고자 합니다. 첫 번째로 필요한 것이 재생원료를 의무 사용하는 것입니다. 이와 같이 우리나라도 역시 재생원료를 2030년까지 30% 두는 목표를 설정을 했고요. 가운데 있는 그림은 재생원료를 사용했을 경우에 인센티브를 주기 위해서 제품에 표시하는 제도입니다. 그래서 6개월 만에, 시행 6개월 만에 상당히 많은 제품들이 여기 포함이 되었고요. 이 재생원료 사용을 인증하는 데 있어서 해외와 같이 상호 인정 대체계가 구축될 수 있도록 마지막 단계에서 ISCC와 같이 협회와 같이 인정 체계를 만들도록 운영하고 있습니다. 그리고 포장재 재질 구조 개선을 열심히 해왔습니다. 아무리 재활용 가능한 재질로 되어 있다 하더라도 금속이라든지 타 재질이 섞여 있을 경우에는 재질 자체가 문제가 아니라 재활용 선별장에서 또는 재활용 시설에서 재활용이 불가능하기 때문에 이런 경우에 있어서 재활용이 잘 되는 제품에 대해서는 최우 우수 등급을 주고 아래에 보이는 바와 같이 여러 가지 인센티브를 지급했습니다. 특히 재활용이 어려운 등급을 제품을 생산한 생산자에 대해서는 오히려 10에서 20% 할증을 주고 이 재활용이 잘 되는 제품에 대해서는 최대 50%까지 인센티브를 지급해서 시행 2년 만에 재활용이 잘 되는 제품들이 많이 생산되는 성과를 얻었습니다. 그리고 시민들이 참여하는 쓰레기를 돈을 내고 버리는 그런 이제 쓰레기를 낼 때, 버릴 때 실제로 돈을 받을 수 있는 이런 체계를 마련을 했고요. 해외로 이제 수출입이 되는 고품질 페트병을 잘 국내에서 순환할 수 있는 체계를 가져서 2년 만에 약 3억 2천만 원 정도의 시민들에게 돌려줄 인센티브를 우리가 마련하였습니다. 마지막으로 앞서 말씀드린 코비드-19으로 인해서 배달음식이나 택배가 너무 많이 일상화되어서 정부 차원에서는 다회용기를 사용하는 데 있어서 표준화를 만들고 일회용품에 대해서는 에코라벨링을 인증을 안 주는 방향 이런 것들을 해서 서울시나 지자체 중심으로 많이 배워왔습니다. 그리고 마지막으로 이 부분은 실제로 EPR을 하는 데 있어서는 사실 제도화에 어려움이 많이 있습니다. 그래서 오른쪽에 보이는 그림과 같이 시민들이 자발적으로 참여하는 모델들은 좀 쉽게 접근할 수 있고 단기적인 성과를 이룰 수 있는 제도인 반면에 위로 올라갈수록 반드시 제도와 법률 제정, 의무화 시행이 반드시 따라야 되는 규제적인 성격의 정책 조치가 필요함을 설명드린 내용입니다. 이상으로 마치겠습니다.
Thank you very much. From Dr. Solari, and Korea has more than 20 years EPR experiences, so I think definitely we can share that key lessons and successful factors with the other countries. And Korea also recently is implementing policy measures on the circular plastic design, aligning with the EPR modulation system. So I think that's the two key highlights she mentioned. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to hear from Dr. Hota from IGS. So from ASEAN regional perspective, how can countries in East Asia strengthen their collaborations on plastic pollution policy to achieve measurable reduction in plastic waste? So, Dr. Honda, could you? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for introduction. And yes, I'm going to talk about our experience engaging with Southeast Asian country and East Asian countries. And we think it is very important to look at this regional level implementation and national level implementation, since we are still under the negotiation of this international legally binding instruments. But after this agreement is made, I think the focus is going to be more on the implementation at the regional or national level. So we need to think what is the effective way to facilitate such kind of implementation. And this is some kind of be aware that Asia Pacific region has different kind of processes, and as you can see, it's very complicated and very duplicated. And under this condition, I think it's very difficult that regional organization or international organization or think tank like IGS or ERIA to coordinate by themselves. But it's very important that national governments take a lead. And for that, I think there are several things is needed, and I'd like to highlight three major points. The first point is it's very useful. It's very essential to have some sort of OECD-style policy coordination or policy consultation function in this region. So, as Korea or Japan getting benefit by participating in OECD, we got a lot of lessons related to policy research and policy guidance and policy harmonization. But emerging countries in Asia Pacific region doesn't have such kind of function. So I think this is very necessary. And currently, ERIA and IGES are trying to fill such kind of function by several work streams, like establishing an expert working group, or collaborating World Bank to establish some sort of regional knowledge platform, and is collaborating with OECD to publish a regional plastic outlook for Asia, ASEAN Plus 3, and so on and so forth. I think this is very important. The second point is, as Patrick mentioned, under the INC, National Action Plan is going to be a very important instrument. And fortunately, this region, including Japan, Korea, and many ASEAN countries, already have developed the National Action Plan. And by doing this effort, and also at the ASEAN level, ASEAN already have ASEAN Regional Action Plan. And I think ASEAN and East Asia should take a lead, and donors should collaborate to coordinate international efforts in the region. And it can identify issues and priorities to be translated into the national and regional action plans that can be implementable among the through the regional collaboration. So I think we should utilize this, and also these countries should take a lead and show some sort of model of the regional level and national level implementation of the international legal binding instrument, because they already have such kind of instrument. The third one I'd like to highlight is capacity development for evidence-based policy making. We need to measure the progress. We need to monitor the progress, how this international legal binding instrument is going to be implemented at the regional and national level. And with support from the area, we did some analysis of where the data is available and data is missing. And we did some analysis among the ASEAN countries, but what we found was data-related consumption and the leakage to the environmental ocean is still lacking in the emerging and less developed economies. I think this area needs more capacity development in terms of the evidence-based policy making. But also, waste-related data is still very lacking, so we need lots of the capacity development in this area. But I would say these consumption and leakages are the emerging topic for the evidence-based policy making. And we actually did some work, for example, in Myanmar, utilizing digital tools. So digital tools seems to be one of the possible solution for the data gaps in the less developed economies. So through this kind of utilization of digital tool, including some support from the professional staff, we can identify hotspots in the city, for example, like Yangon. And we could draw material flow of the Yangon city for plastic waste flow. So we always say that there's a data is missing, but with certain techniques, we can draw this kind of diagram. Also, the other thing we need to pay attention to is not only the big cities, but important to pay attention to the rural cities, because rural city has a more lack of the capacity for handling this plastic waste stream, and leakage is very high in these rural cities. We did some survey in Cambodia, and we found, for example, like amount of the leakages in very small city in Cambodia is equivalent to large city like Yangon. So this is something what we found, and the importance of how this concept make into the implementation level at the regional, national, and local. I think these are important key findings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The ASEAN countries are the most severe plastic pollution areas. I think regional collaboration efforts will be necessary and will be very important. As Patrick mentioned, that plastic flow data gaps are still key priority to address. So where all the plastic going in stock or in the ocean, in rivers, so I think you have a great suggestion, and international collaboration efforts we need to make. Thank you very much. Now also we'd like to hear from area Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. So given your expertise in marine plastic pollution. So what steps do you believe are critical for the ASEAN and East Asian region to effectively mitigate marine plastic debris? So could you talk about 5 to 6 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your introduction. I'm Ryo Kamura, Director for United Center for Marine Plastic Debris. I'd like to address the question from this plastic pollution mitigation ASEAN East Asia slide. Before addressing the question, please allow me to make a brief introduction of what is area and what is regional knowledge center. It was established in 2019 as an information clearinghouse with a mission to provide information and support to ASEAN plus 3 member states to help them improve plastic circularity and prevent plastic leakage into the marine environments. And you can find in the history of 2023 that we have also earned accreditation as an intergovernmental organization and registered an observer to the United Nations Environmental Assembly conferences, including these INC meetings. And our activities include capacity building, support for science-based policy formulation, raising public awareness on plastic pollution, building and fostering networks and partnerships across the region, as well as supporting private sector innovations to address this issue. So let me start from providing a background of the plastic pollution issue in Asia. The OECD projected in 2023 that plastic leakage into the environment expected to reach 30 million tons per year by 2040, of which 9 million tons will end up in aquatic environment. This is a global trend which was projected by OECD. At the ASEAN plus 3 region, 7 member states are among the top 10 countries with the highest annual plastic emissions into the ocean. So ASEAN plus 3 is the hotspot of the plastic pollution in terms of the amount of the emissions. Emissions from these 7 countries account for about 65% of the annual global emissions. And the Regional Center of Area is currently supporting the development of OECD Regional Plastic Outlook, as explained Dr. Hotta in the previous presentation, so I'd like to omit this part. I'd like to, this slide is also overlapped by Dr. Hotta's mention that I'd like to share that again, that ASEAN region has understood the serious issue about plastic pollution and already taken steps at the national level and regional level. As for the regional level, I'd like to add one news about the newly adopted ASEAN Declaration on Plastic Circularity. This new declaration was adopted last month's ASEAN Summit. ASEAN member states adopted this new declaration under the Lao PDR's ASEAN chairmanship, and it built upon the precedence of the previous documents and progress that have been made in this region, while emphasizing the need to transition to a circular economy for plastics. This entails adoption of sustainable practices across the full life cycle of plastics, including eco-design, reuse and refill systems, and plastic leakage prevention. And we had supporting Lao PDR preparing this new declaration under Lao PDR ASEAN chairmanship. And it is not written in this slide. Area is also had honor to co-organize the ASEAN Conference on Combating Plastic Pollution, or ACCPP 2024 in Vientiane, with the government of Lao PDR. It gathered over 200 in-person and online participants representing governments, academia, the private sector, and civil society organizations from across the region. This ACCPP was actually launched in October 2023 by Indonesia ASEAN chairmanship last year. And area co-hosted the ACCPP 2023 with government of Indonesia and Indonesia NPAP. And in those two ACCPPs, diverse stakeholder groups in the region gathered to discuss practical solutions against plastic pollution. And actually, 7 ASEAN member states have already developed their national action plan, which has already touched upon by Dr. Hotta. So what is the program? There's already commitment and willingness to address plastic pollution. However, as Dr. Hotta mentions, ASEAN countries face a number of challenges, including data gaps. It had already touched upon Dr. Hotta, so I'd like to skip this slide, but please find this report from this QR code. You can find the details of what Dr. Hotta addressed about the data gaps among ASEAN member states. I'd like to add the information about the gap of the capacity of the waste management practices among ASEAN member states. OECD's 2022 Global Plastic Outlook shows that despite efforts to advance waste management practices and recycling, non-OECD Asian countries, including these ASEAN member states, still fall behind in proper waste management compared to global average. Global average of the waste management mismanagement ratio, it means open dumping or open burning. It counted to 22% of the overall plastic waste. As for the non-OECD Asian countries, the ratio is almost double, 43% to the global average. So in short, it is clear that certain interventions need to be taken effectively to address plastic pollution in Asian region. It is clear that ASEAN member states have the willingness and commitment to address the issue. The remaining challenges can be addressed by two actions. First, there is strong need to build knowledge and capacity. This includes capacity to fill gaps in plastic information and waste management. And secondly, there are needs for support from international schemes. It is important that international schemes such as upcoming Global Plastic Treaty does not only provide principles and guidelines to abide to, but also provide practical support. Furthermore, it is important that support is given to countries that are disproportionately affected by plastic pollution, so that they may effectively implement the international schemes. That is my conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kawamura. And he mentioned that we need to definitely increase capacity building for Asian countries and also practical supports from international schemes. So I think that's a good suggestion. And but I think when I see those some slide, we see that many Asian countries already developing national action plans, and how we're gonna implement that action plan. That's the also key issues that we need to address. Thank you very much. Now we would like to hear from Mr. Agrawala from OECD, and I know you have some economic policies and incentive experts. So how can economic incentives and policy to be leveraged to drive a reduction in plastic production and also promote sustainable alternatives? So we'd like to hear from 5 to 6 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Yang. It's a great pleasure to be on this panel. In Korea, we have, follow a lot of KEI's work, and we are actively partnering with adjacent area in the regional plastics outlet that they mentioned. I'm not going to introduce the OECD, but I'm going to introduce the work we have done on economic instruments. So EPR has been talked about on the panel and before. So we started working on extended producer responsibility in the early 1990s, when the very first systems were put in place. And we've been a standard setter in this area, including developing policy guidance on how to set up these systems in different product streams. We've also done a lot of work on circular economy, but much more recently on plastics, and you've already seen some of the results from the Global Plastics Outlook and also the forthcoming Regional Plastics Outlook. Now, in these brief remarks, I have no slides, so you'll have to listen to me. Just to set the stage, because I've been asked to talk about economic instruments, particularly upstream. So, just to set the stage, those numbers that we mentioned before, plastics use has been increasing at a dramatic pace. Plastics use doubled between 2000 and 2020. It's projected to double between now and 2050. And plastic waste is also projected to double by mid-century. Even if we look at 2040, which many countries are talking about as a target date, we are projecting, as was mentioned by Dr. Hota, 30 million tons of plastics will be leaking into the environment. And if you look at the amount of mismanaged waste, that's going to be almost 180 million tons globally. So we need, partial approaches won't work, whether it's partial in terms of what part of the plastics life cycle you address, or if it's partial in terms of coverage of countries. We need global action throughout the life cycle. And to do implementation at national and subnational levels, governments need to leverage the full arsenal of policy tools. So that includes economic instruments, but also regulatory approaches, voluntary schemes and information schemes. So information schemes, one example could be labeling. Voluntary approaches, you have a number of private sector actors who are discussing them. Regulations and economic instruments in the national context were already mentioned in the excellent presentation by Dr. Sora and Lisa. I'm not going to repeat all of them. But if we come to economic instruments more specifically, it's a suite of tools. I mean, taxes of various flavors, but also tax incentives / subsidies, tradable permits, the deposit for fund schemes, pay-as-you-throw schemes, which was also mentioned. Extended producer responsibility also have elements of economic instruments in them, and so on. So that's the broad toolkit we're talking about. Now, when we talk about taxes, they can have several distinct objectives. The core concept of an environmental tax is to internalize the environmental damage, because the price should reflect the damage the production of that good creates. So that's internalizing the environmental externality. A completely different objective could be to use a tax to drive changes in consumer behavior. That's very different, because that depends upon how elastic the demand is of the consumer. So many of the charges on single-use bags were actually much higher than the environmental externality of the very light plastic use bag. It was more to drive changes in demand, and that's what led to the setting of levels. And of course, in some contexts, you can set taxes primarily with the revenue-raising goal, and the environmental objectives are secondary. So you need to be clear on what objective you have in mind before you decide into what kind of tax and what the levels should be. In the case of plastics taxes specifically, another issue is one needs to be clear where we are putting the tax. So you could put the tax at the feedstock stage, at the level of fossil inputs, for example, which are going to produce plastics. Or it could be levied at the stage of producing the monomer or the polymer, or at the level of specific plastic products, which then hit the consumption stage, or it could be the end of life stage. And depending upon where the tax is levied, the impacts will be very different. Obviously, the further upstream you go, the impact will be all the way downstream through the cycle, but the pass-through in terms of conveying a clear signal to the consumers may not be very significant if you have a very upstream tax. So all these things need to be very clear. We should not talk just very generally in terms of taxes. One needs to be clear where we are levying it and what the objectives are, basically. Now, what is the experience around the world of applying taxes related to plastics? So upstream taxes, particularly targeting production, are conceptual. I mean, there isn't really any experience. So at the consumption level, there is a fair bit of experience, even beyond the EPR schemes we've been talking about. So UK and Spain stand out as two countries which have introduced weight-based taxes on the virgin plastic content of packaging. Israel is also applying a weight-based tax, but that's for specific categories of single-use plastics. And most other identified plastic taxes currently are designed as specific values applied to a defined set of often single-use plastic products. There's also a recent trend in applying tax incentives. For example, VAT reductions for repair. Now, that may not specifically be tackling plastics, it could be for textiles, it could be for electronics and so on, but those are goods which contain a significant amount of plastics. And the debate is open whether that's a good way to go. The tax experts would argue that such VAT differentiation is probably not a good idea from a fiscal perspective. The jury's out in terms of what the impact is. It also depends, even if you apply VAT reductions to incentivize certain behavior, the question is the VAT reduction going to pass through to the consumer? It's only then when you change the demand. But if the pass-through is not there, the demand will not be impacted. So, and we don't have very much experience in applying economic instruments to support reuse and remanufacturing. Now, let me just talk about this whole issue of taxes upstream. So we don't have actual examples. Now, there are some advantages. The ease of implementation is one. You have very few actors, and implementation and enforcement could be much simpler than applying taxes to hundreds of thousands of products, the number of actors involved. But at the same time, upstream taxes would be much broader, so they would be targeted towards a wide variety of product groups, and they risk affecting other sectors beyond whatever you might be targeting. So one needs to be careful as well. It also increases the likelihood that the end consumer does not see the signal you're trying to convey. So in terms of changing demand, the impact of very upstream taxes will not be very high. Now, I did mention that upstream taxes are conceptual. Where we do have experience is a negative tax, which is a subsidy, which is actually distortionary. So there is work which we've done a lot of work in subsidies, but not for plastics. But there's work which a former colleague recently published, and this is a report by the United Nations Quaker Organization and Eunomia, which said that currently there are $45 billion of subsidies going to plastics production. So even before we talk about taxes, we first need to have a plan to remove these distortionary subsidies, which are actually encouraging primary plastic production. I'll end there because my time is up.
Thank you very much. We heard that a very comprehensive overview of economic instruments, such as taxes especially, and also some economic incentives. And also you mentioned that we need to minimize the subsidies to the primary productions. I think it's a good overview on that economic approach. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to hear from GGI, Global Green Growth Institute, which is located in Seoul, in Korea, and from Elena Roberts. So how can global institutes like GGI support the nations in developing effective and inclusive plastic pollution policies? I'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thank you to the Korean Environment Institute for the invitation, the opportunity. So GGI is quite special organization because we work at different levels of governance, from the ASEAN Secretariat and other regional institutions to the very small municipalities. So we cover all the level of governance, as well as we provide support in developing financial instruments and investments, as well as we actually propose engineering solutions, in this case on solid management and circular economy. One of the special activities that GGI is now doing is actually we are actually supporting the ASEAN Secretariat in developing the regional strategy, the ASEAN strategy in solid waste management. So you will have to add another line there next year. In doing so, we are really trying to work very closely with the government of the ASEAN countries to actually propose technical solutions that are ambitious, right, because they need to solve their solid management issues, but also they are achievable. So we are targeting some actions, and then each government will actually support us in identifying which action they can actually apply on the ground. Based on our experience actually on the ground, and this can be applied not only to plastic but also to all the other fractions, actually we understand that waste collection is the first aspect. So waste collection from also the very small rural municipalities to the big cities is very important, and this also can be done through sustainable financial systems. Sustainable financial systems are not only regarding infrastructure, but also through the participation of the public, so also the payment of taxes and fees from the public. And then we have noticed also that the informal recycling sector has a very important role on this in ensuring that all the waste is actually collected. We have noticed in some countries that plastic is not in some cities that plastic is not collected because simply there is no market, there is no value. And so how to include the informal sector and how to develop all the value chain to ensure that there is demand and there is uptake of the waste that is actually collected by the informal sector. So the informal sector need to be included, and all the value chain need to be, let's say, built. We also work as GGI, we work to support companies to develop investment. And so, for example, earlier in other panels today, I was listening about the opportunity to increase the recyclability of plastic and to increment the amount of plastic, of recycled plastic into new products. So companies need to have the right equipment, they need to have the right infrastructure to actually be able to do that. Not only the big companies, but also the small companies before, like the junk shops, but also the informal sector. We know that plastic needs to be protected throughout the chain, so from the collection to the actual processing. So GGI can support, let's say, from the very small junk shop to the bigger company to actually then uptake all the material that is actually generated. And then in doing that, GGI, I was mentioning earlier that we are working on a regional strategy, but GGI is also pretty much working also with national government very closely, and also with the subnational governments, develop strategy and plans. So this is also something that we are pretty much doing as well. And we are also supporting then, for example, in the example before, we are supporting governments in actually understanding how these actions can then be implemented on the ground. So the plan should consider all the stakeholders in the value chain and also the cost recovery aspect, which for us is particularly important. Another point that GGI is contributing to do is also on sustainable disposal, waste disposal. We recognize that not all the countries are still already ready for waste incineration, for example. So we are supporting governments in understanding how to have a better disposal. We have visited many cities in which dumping sites are actually on the seaside, right? So this is the very first source of pollution in the marine environment, and there are also many islands. Now I refer to the Philippines, but also in many other countries where GGI operates, that actually where waste is actually even not collected. So we see the impacts, but it's very hard to find a revenue or a reason why to operate a dumping site or a landfill in a sustainable way. So GGI is able also not only to provide or to, let's say, suggest environmentally safe disposal modalities, but also the biogas and then also the carbon credit and all this type of innovative financing systems. At the very final point, also GGI is something that we are doing very closely, again, not only for plastic but for all the other fractions. We are actually supporting the government in strengthening their departments, and so we capacitate the government institutions and with direct capacity building, but also by directly also working with them on the ground. So they are joining our field visits so they can understand directly what we mean with sustainable solid waste management and also, of course, plastic waste management. So these are my points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. we are very happy to hear the GGI support nations in developing very effective plastic pollution policy. She mentioned that especially like informal sectors in Asian countries, which is very important because many plastic waste flows are managed by informal sectors. How are we gonna integrate those informal sector? We need some transparent and formal plastic flow. So I think that that's one of the key challenge that we need to overcome. Thank you very much. Now the last person from Korea Chemical Industry Association. The former was Petrochemical Industry Association from Kim Hyung-jun. So as a representative from the petrochemical industry in Korea, so how does the industry view its role in achieving the goals of global plastic treaty, and what steps are being taken to reduce plastic production at the source? So now I'd like to hear 5 or 6 minutes. Thank you.
예, 방금 소개받은 화학산업협회 조홍중이라고 합니다. 먼저 저희 그 화학산업협회는 이제 한국의 석유화학산업을 대표하고 있는 곳이고요. 폴리머를 포함한 화학 소재를 만드는 기업들이 저희 회원으로 활동하고 있습니다. 저희 협회는 1974년에 설립돼서 올해 50주년이 된 대회인데요. 굉장히 좀 중대한 변화를 많이 했습니다. 저희가 최근에 이제 우리 산업이 앞으로 이제 탄소 중립 달성과 그다음에 플라스틱 협약 등에 대응해서 지속 가능한 성장을 하기 위해서는 산업 구조 자체를 탄소 중립적이고 친환경적으로 저희가 바꾸지 않으면 안 된다라고 판단을 하고 있고, 이에 따라서 앞에 저희가 석유를 지우고 11월 1일부터 이제 한국화학산업협회 명칭을 변경했습니다. 먼저 저희 석유화학산업을 말씀드리면, 석유화학산업은 석유를 원료로 자동차나 각종 일상생활에 필요한 소재를 공급하는 산업입니다. 이 한국은 특히 이제 석유화학과 이 플라스틱, 폴리머 쪽 산업이 굉장히 발달된 나라인데요. 이 석유화학 산업은 우리나라 생산이나 출면에서 국내 제조업 중에서는 대략 한 4위 정도에 있고, 그다음에 세계적으로도 석유화학 생산량은 4위를 기록하고 있습니다. 이제 저희 전체 한국의 석유화학 산업은 이제 사업 구조 중에서 이 플라스틱 비즈니스가 전체 한 60% 정도를 차지하고 있는데, 그렇다 보니 이제 우리 플라스틱 원료인 폴리머 생산량도 세계 4위를 기록하고 있습니다. 앞에서 말씀드린 것처럼 이제 산업이 지속 성장 가능하기 위해서는 친환경 전환이 굉장히 중요하다고 생각을 하고 있고, 특히 이 플라스틱 폐기물로 인한 오염 문제를 해결하는 것이 저희가 굉장히 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 한국의 화학 기업들은 과거에는 이제 경제적 가치, 경제성을 중시해서 사업을 영위해 왔다면, 최근에는 경제성보다는 사회적인 문제 해결, 사회적 가치를 더 중요하게 생각하는 인식 전환을 현재 한 상태. 그래서 지금 저희가 플라스틱 오염 방지를 위해서 저희도 이제 여러 가지 기업들의 많은 노력들을 하고 있는데요. 첫째는 물론 이제 플라스틱 저희가 보는 것은 이제 크게 두 가지입니다. 첫째는 기후 위기 문제에 대응하는 부분. 두 번째는 플라스틱 오염 중식 대응입니다. 그래서 먼저 기후 위기 대응과 플라스틱 오염 중식을 위해서는 제품을 먼저 좀 저희가 바꿔야 될 필요성이 있다. 그래서 과거에는 저희가 플라스틱을 예로 들면 어떤 제품이나 용기를 만들기 위해서 굉장히 많은 플라스틱들이 필요했다면, 지금은 이제 무게를 줄이면서 훨씬 더 좋은 기능을 제공하는 형태로 제품 구조를 좀 저희가 바꿔나가고 있죠. 그러니까 두 번째는 지금 저희가 플라스틱의 원료가 석유입니다. 석유를 원료와 연료로 해서 플라스틱 제품들이 만들어지게 되는데, 그러니까 저희가 석유 투입량을 좀 줄여야 되겠다라고 해서 지금 이제 첫 번째는 우리 플라스틱 폐기물을 저희가 산업 원료화를 추진을 하고 있습니다. 그리고 두 번째로는 이제 석유가 아니라 바이오매스를 기반으로 만들어진 원료들도 저희가 이제 공정 원료로 투입을 하면서 궁극적으로는 이제 석유 투입 감소를 통해서 온실가스 배출을 줄이는 이런 좀 노력도 하고 있습니다. 폐플라스틱 산업 원료화 부분은 저희가 한국의 환경부와 또 환경연구원과 긴밀히 저희가 여러 가지 많은 일들을 하고 있는데, 첫 번째는 아까 우리 이소라 박사님께서 이제 고품질 재생원료 부분 말씀 주셨습니다만, 고품질 재생원료 생산, 그다음에 화학적 재활용을 통해서 폐기물 발생 재활용이 확대되도록 이제 저희가 노력을 하고 있고요. 최근에는 이제 지자체들과 협력을 해서 저희 한국은 이제 종량제 봉투락에서 쓰레기들을 분리배출을 할 때 봉투에 담아서 배출을 하도록 되어 있습니다. 그 봉투에 들어있는 플라스틱이 전체 한 25% 정도를 차지하고 있는데, 그 플라스틱을 가지고 와서 화학적 재활용을 통해서 저희 석유화학산업에 필요한 원료로 전환하는 그런 쪽에 대한 노력과 투자를 현재 하고 있습니다. 세 번째로는 이제 저희가 결국은 이제 원료 부분도 바뀌어야 되지만 연료 부분도 바꿔야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 최근에는 이제 수소라든가 아모니아 같은 탄소 배출이 없는 연료 사용을 하려고 하고 있고, 그다음에 두 번째로는 재생 에너지를 통해서 저희가 이번에 석유 연료가 아니라 재생 에너지를 통해서 연료 자체를 친환경적인 연료로 좀 바꾸려고 노력을 하고 있습니다. 그리고 저희가 이러한 원료와 연료를 바꾸는 것뿐만 아니라 저희 산업에서 발생되고 있는 CO2 자체를 또 저희가 원료로 전환하는 CCU 기술도 현재 개발하고 있고요. 뿐만 아니라 최근에는 저희가 한국에 있는 화학 기업들이 대부분 이제 글로벌 수준의 기업들이 굉장히 많습니다. 그래서 해외에도 굉장히 많은 사업장들이 있는데, 아시아 지역의 사업장에 있는 일부 기업들 같은 경우는 해당 국가와 같이 협력을 해서 해당 지역의 재활용 때 아니면 폐기물 문제 해결을 위해서 바이오 플라스틱이라든가 생분해 플라스틱과 같은 것들을 같이 협력을 통해서 제품을 만들고 그런 것들을 재활용하는 그런 시스템도 저희가 갖추려고 노력을 하고 있고요. 앞으로는 저희가 우리 국내에서 어떤 순환경제가 확대되기 위한 노력뿐만 아니라 특히 저희가 주로 수출하는 아시아 지역에 있는 여러 나라들과 함께 이런 부분들이 더 확대될 수 있도록 국제협력도 강화할 예정으로 있습니다.
Thank you very much. He mentioned that some new paradigm shift from like to the eco-friendly product productions and based on biomass and also circular feedstock that they are trying to. And also he mentioned there's some chemical recycling, more advanced recycling technology that they are trying to, and even just hydrogen productions and CCU, carbon capture and utilizations efforts on combating the climate change. Thank you very much. And we heard all the talks from 7 invited guests. Now I'd like to open up the Q&A session from the floor. So now we can have, we still have about 10 minutes. So those of you who have any questions, please go ahead and raise your hands and ask any question you have. So, any question from the floor? The audience? Yeah. Sure. So, microphones, please.
This question goes to the Korean people, so let me speak in Korean. 김형중 이사님 감사합니다. 그 발표 토론 잘 들었고요. 협회에서 원료나 연료에 대해서 혁신적인 어떤 노력을 해주시는 부분에 대해서 감사하게 생각을 하고요. 개인적으로 궁금한 것은 현재 협약에서 지금 규제하려고 하는 유해화학물, 그러니까 chemical concern이라고 하는 좀 리스트가 나와 있거든요. 어느 정도 그런 부분들을 우리나라 석유화학 업계에서는 어느 정도 사용하시고 만약 그 규제가 된다면 어느 정도 타격이 있을 거라고 예상하시는지 그거 하나 우선 여쭤보고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
무료 화학물질 부분이 지금 협약에서 논의되고 있는데요. 대부분 이제 주로 보면 이제 플라스틱이 들어가는 첨가제입니다. 일반적으로 플라스틱 제품을 제조할 때 들어가는 첨가제의 양은 무게비 기준 전체의 대략 3% 이하, 2 내지 3% 정도 사용이 되고 있고요. 그 첨가제들은 이제 플라스틱이 가진 약점들을 보완하는 용도로 사용이 되는데 굉장히 여러 종류의 첨가제들이 사용이 되고 있습니다. 근데 이제 문제는 이 첨가제들이 플라스틱 첨가제만 이제 좁혀서 말씀드리면 굉장히 많은 첨가제들이 사용이 되고 있고, 그다음에 그 중에 이제 일부 첨가제들은 이제 원료나 아니면 제품, 그 첨가제 제품 자체 제조할 때 여러 가지 좀 환경, 우리 호르몬 결합 물질이나 아니면 발암 물질 이렇게 의심을 받고 있어서, 그래서 이제 협약에서 그런 부분을 규제를 해야 될 필요성이 있는 것으로 판단을 하고 있는데, 이제 문제는 일단 그런 부분들이 사실은 우려는 있지만 아직 정확하게 사실은 그런 것들이 이제 인체 건강에 위해하다고 사실은 확정적으로 나오는 부분은 없어서, 그런 부분에 대해서는 협약에서 과학 전문가 그룹에서 그런 부분들을 이제 앞으로 검증을 통해서 실제 검증이 된 확인이 된 물질들은 아마 규제하는 쪽으로 갈 것으로 예상은 하고 있고요. 일정 부분은 저도 그런 부분들은 이제 사용은 줄여야 된다고 생각을 하고 있지만, 일단 그러기 위해서는 첫째는 대체 가능한 물질이 있는가를 먼저 좀 봐야 될 필요성이 있다라고 생각을 합니다. 그런데 최근에 우리 EU에서 과부라 화합물이라고 하는 것을 규제하려고 준비를 했습니다만, 실제 그 과부라 화합물이 대체 물질이 없어서 산업계 반대가 워낙 크다 보니 EU에서도 지금 현재 위해를 한 것으로 알고 있는데, 나머지 첨가제들도 지금 그런 상황, 동일한 상황이다라고 저는 이해를 하고 있습니다.
I think you mentioned that some chemicals of concern, how to respond that the chemicals of concern in plastic product. But I think still we haven't have a very reliable and confidence data in regard to the plastic additives. There are so many different additives, but definitely some of the potentially toxic chemicals should be restricted and reused and banned in the long term period of time. So thank you very much. And any question from our audience? No? Okay.
Hi, first of all, thank you very much for insightful discussions. I would like to ask a question to Sora Lee from KEI, so I'll ask in Korean. 현재 국내에 플라스틱 재생 원료 규정들이 좀 나오고 있고, 아직까지는 발런터리의 영역이지만 나오고 있는데, 이게 국내 원료의 사용 혹은 글로벌 원료의 사용 등에 대해 아직 그런 발런터리 레귤레이션은 국내 원료의 사용을 좀 더 비중을 두는 걸로 알고 있습니다. 점점 이런 재생 원료의 사용이 확산되었을 때 과연 국내 원료로 충분할지, 혹은 글로벌 리사이클 컨텐츠 재생 원료도 좀 인정해줘서 충분한 양을 좀 이제 확보할 수 있는 방향으로 나아가야 될지 어떻게 보시는지에 대해서 좀 궁금합니다.
네, 주신 질문에 대해서 답변을 드리면, 일단 재생원료 사용 속도는 앞서 말씀드렸다시피 플라스틱의 재생원료의 수출입이 실제로 많이 이루어지고 있고, 특히 수입에 의존하고 있는 재생원료를 국내에서 버려진 플라스틱을 이용해서 하는 거기 때문에 거기에 초점이 맞춰져 있고, 실제로 이 재생원료 인증 자체도 국내에 한정돼서 가는 것이 맞고요. 앞으로 이제 실제로 지금 재생원료 인증 체계를 연구하고 있는데, 환경공단과 환경부에서 현재 지금 시점에서 분석한 바로는 현재 버려진 플라스틱 페트병이나 이런 것들이 재생원료를 아직 재활용률은 막 70%, 50%, 70%인데 실제로는 재생원료로 사용된 건 3%밖에 안 되거든요. 재활용은 됐는데 재생원료로 대해서 사용된 건 3% 수준이라는 것은 그 이제 실제로 페트병만 기준으로 보더라도 한 70% 이상이 재활용이 됐지만 3%밖에 안 됐다는 건 나머지 약 70%에 가까운 부분들을 이 재생원료화 시스템에 넣어서 인증체계를 함으로써 어느 정도는 국내 물량을 더 확보해서 할 수 있을 것으로 보여지고요. 물론 우리나라의 제품들도 해외에 수출이 되기도 하고 해외 수출됐을 때 또 상호 인정 부분도 있기 때문에 그 부분은 이제 점차적으로 아마 제도를 좀 보완해 나갈 것으로 알고 있습니다.
I think tomorrow also we have sessions on recycled content or plastic organized by Ministry of Environment, Korea Ministry of Environment. So I think you can hear more detail on that. Okay, so I think we're supposed to close the territory today. So it's time to close our sessions. I hope this policy roundtable sessions enhanced our understanding of effective policy approaches to tackle global plastic pollution. So we know that we have many challenges ahead along the way. So global collaborations and knowledge exchange among countries would be very valuable and necessary for eliminating plastic pollution. So I'd like to especially thank you all of the invited guests and also participants, and especially the session organizer, KEI. Thank you very much. Now we close this session. Thank you very much.
요 아래 와야 되는구나.
Thank you.